This is News Talk Radio Guyana 103.1 FM. Drink Pepsi Black from Max Taste. No sugar. Pepsi Black time, 18 hours or 6 p.m.
The news from Guyana, the region and the world. Compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom and powered by DemeraraWaves.com.
The news comes to you with the compliments of Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC. With the news at this time, I'm Dennis Chabrol. Good evening. First, the highlights. We tell you this hour that Venezuela's government and opposition coalition have formally agreed to unite around their country's long-standing claim to an oil-rich swath of neighboring Guyana. There has been a sharp increase in the number of COVID deaths within the past 24 hours, and none of those who have succumbed was vaccinated. The Region 4 chairman is accusing the central government of attempting to impose a budget in the region, but the regional executive officer says official records prove otherwise. A man has allegedly chopped his father to death on the Essequibo island of Wakanam. And in the Caribbean community today proposed several initiatives to deepen integration with African nations. And internationally, the Taliban have announced an interim government in Afghanistan, declaring the country an Islamic emirate. The details of these and other stories in a moment.
Is it a special occasion? Are you on a budget but still want a filling and oh so mouth-watering meal? Look no further. KFC is here for you with their affordable and finger-licking good meals. Treat your family or friends like royalty without hurting your pockets. KFC is here for you at 9 locations and 6 drive-thrus, including the Amazonia Mall at Providence, to make that occasion really special. KFC.
It's finger-licking good.
And now the news in detail. Venezuela's government and opposition coalition have formally agreed to unite around their country's long-standing claim to an oil-rich swath of neighboring Guyana. Under the first partial accord signed yesterday, the parties came together around Venezuela's historical claim to what it calls the Guyana Essequibo territory, which includes offshore oil acreage controlled by Guyana. An ExxonMobil-led consortium is currently producing some 120,000 barrels per day of crude from the Stabroek block in the disputed region, and forecasts reaching 800,000 barrels per day in 2025. This will surpass Venezuela, that once produced 3 million barrels per day and is now only pumping around 500,000 barrels per day. The accord reiterates Venezuela's rejection of the International Court of Justice's declaration of jurisdiction over the issue, and it is urging Guyana to engage in direct negotiations. Guyana has already said that it is putting its faith in the International Court of Justice because already the court has found that it has jurisdiction. 7 persons have died from COVID within the past few hours. The national death toll is now 658. The health minister says 6 women and 1 man died yesterday and 2 died today. He says none of them was vaccinated.
Over the last 24 hours, we've had 7 deaths. And unfortunately, none of those persons who have died would have been vaccinated. So again, we just want to appeal to everyone. Please go get yourself vaccinated. You require both doses to be fully immunized, but you can start today. If you haven't gotten the vaccine, just start today. Go and get your first dose vaccine, because vaccines do work, they're effective, and they protect people.
All of the 6 persons who succumbed are from Region 4, Demerara Mahaica, with the youngest being 31 years old and the oldest being 88 years old. Other statistics released by the Ministry of Health show that there are now 2,385 active cases. Of the 136 persons in hospital, 37 are seriously sick and are receiving intensive care. The official figures also show that there are 161 new cases. The active cases include 2,249 persons who have been ordered to isolate themselves at home. Based on the severity and increasing number of cases, the Ministry of Health believes that a highly transmissible Delta variant is prevalent in Guyana. The chairman of the Region 4 Council, Daniel Seram, this morning accused the central government of attempting to impose a budget on the region at the last minute. He told a news conference this morning that the Ministry of Finance issued a budget circular to all agencies on July 31, but the regional executive officer, Daniel Gajraj, gave him only on September 2. The regional chairman says the proposed regional budget for 2022 has to be submitted on September 6. He accuses the regional executive officer of imposing a budget on Region 4.
The Regional Democratic Council condemns the recent action of the REO and wishes to notify all and sundry that the submission of the proposed budget for Region Number 4 is not a reflection of the will of the people of Region Number 4. We urge that immediate attention be given to these issues and that the necessary corrective action begin forthwith. Commandeering of the Regional Budget 2022 will not be accepted in any shape or form by the regional elected officials.
Mr. Seram wants President Irfan Ali to intervene in what amounts to hijacking of the consultative process for crafting the Region 4 budget. But the Region 4 Regional Executive Officer says the minutes of a regional council meeting in late July show that the regional chairman and the council had been aware of the need to prepare the proposed budget.
If the chairman can produce to you the minutes of the July RDC meeting, you would see that he had requested of the councils then to submit their proposals for the 2022 budget. It's in there, it's in the minutes. So he knew before. And as councils, they work throughout the year on these projects to be submitted. The document that I sent to him was a reminder of the date.
Mr. Gajraj further states that regional councillors are aware and throughout the year they have to identify projects and programs for next year's budget. The regional executive officer says the regional chairman left Guyana without permission and without the knowledge of the administration. Mr. Gajraj says all that Mr. Seram had told him is that he would have been out of the jurisdiction to spend time with his family. Doctors have rejected claims in some circles that the COVID-19 vaccines will eventually affect the fertility of adolescents. This assurance comes as Guyana and several other Caribbean countries continue to inoculate adolescents from 12 years and older with the Pfizer vaccine. Dr. Rajesh Bisnath is a United States-based Guyanese pediatrician.
There's been no effects on puberty. Like I said, it's been given from ages 12 on and up, and there's been a couple of million doses already administered over the last few months, and there's no reports that it affects puberty, or fertility, or birth defects or any of that stuff just yet. It has not affected. There's been no significant effects on puberty, and it's one of the more common questions I would have gotten, especially from parents of girls.
Pediatrician Dr. Rajesh Bisnath. About 5,000 Guyanese children have so far been vaccinated against COVID-19. Draft legislation for the reform of Guyana's electoral machinery is with the executive of the People's Progressive Party, PPP. Attorney General Alan Nandalal says the draft was dispatched to his party's leadership 3 weeks ago. He says there is no immediate time frame when it will be circulated for public consultation.
It is with the party leadership. And I suppose after that process is completed, then the party will engage in public consultation, and the government will engage.
The Attorney General had previously stated that the draft reforms will be dispatched to the opposition, the public through the media, and in the National Assembly, where the opposition will get another opportunity to make its views known. The Attorney General says the PPP's leadership will examine the draft amendments to Guyana's electoral laws based on its experience.
The leadership of the party has to go through the proposed amendments and agree. I am only one person. The membership of the party has vast political experience in the electoral process, and their input is integral to ensuring that we get it right.
He on Monday declined to say what key changes to the Representation of the People Act and other legislation have been recommended, instead saying he preferred to await the end of the process. The Attorney General had in the past indicated that the legislation would be amended to allow for only the statements of poll to be used in tallying the results of general and regional elections, as well as the mandatory publication of statements of poll. The PPP and the opposition of Partnership for National Unity plus Alliance for Change have been trading accusations about fraud at the March 2, 2020 general and regional elections. A security guard last night shot and injured a man outside a supermarket at Diamond, East Bank, Demerara, after he and the two others allegedly paid the cashier with counterfeit money. Injured is 26-year-old Shaquille Dalrymple of Campbellville Housing Scheme. The shooting occurred outside the Hua Chinese supermarket after he and the two others allegedly paid the cashier with counterfeit money. Police say that after the cashier realized that the two $5,000 bills were bogus, she confronted the men and stood in front of the car. Investigators were also told that one of the occupants fired a shot. According to police, the security guard on duty then opened fire on the men, injuring Dalrymple in his back while he was about to enter the vehicle. After Dalrymple fell to the ground, police say the other two men fled the scene in the car. A taxi driver in Bartica last night wrestled with a bandit who posed as a passenger and boarded the car outside the Bartica hospital. Police were informed that when the car arrived at Mora Camp, the man drew a black handgun and attempted to relieve the driver of his gold chains from around his neck. The driver told the police that he resisted and took the firearm away from the perpetrator. The taxi driver reported that he hit the man twice with a firearm to his head, and a round was discharged from the gun. The suspect escaped from the car and fled the scene. The taxi driver handed over the .32 Taurus pistol to the Bartica police station. The area was searched, but police say they did not locate the suspect. A man has allegedly chopped his father to death in Wakanam, an island in the Essequibo River. Dead is 59-year-old Archelaus Anthony Miguel, a laborer of Lot 758 under Leeming Housing Scheme, Essequibo Coast. Police say the incident occurred yesterday. The 26-year-old son then traveled to the Truly Island, where police say villagers further questioned him. He reportedly confessed to chopping his father several times and leaving him to die after they had an argument. The villagers have apprehended him and are awaiting police. Investigators say the father and his son left for the back dam, but his son returned, initially claiming to be feeling unwell. Police say when the son was asked about the whereabouts of his father, he claimed that he left his father in the back dam. The Guyana Police Force says checks for the father so far have led to the discovery of his pants and the cell phone. In the region, the Caribbean Community CARICOM today proposed several initiatives to deepen integration with African nations. These proposals were made during the first CARICOM Africa Summit. Barbados' Prime Minister Mia Mottley cites the need for an air bridge between the Caribbean and the African continent, even if governments have to initially pay some of the operational costs.
The establishment of a regular weekly direct airline flight between Africa and CARICOM even if it means that we may have initially to help subsidize it, because without the vision that is necessary, without the mental emancipation, the unlocking of that 1.4 billion people will not happen. And we cannot justify the AU making CARICOM the 6th diasporic region without seeking now to ensure that the people of both regions can mix with one another and understand why we truly are family.
The Barbadian Prime Minister says a joint mass CARICOM African Union media platform to exchange news, sport and artistic programs to stimulate and sustain trade, air and maritime links is also needed. Ms. Motley also recommends a dedicated public-private sector mechanism to focus on the development of creative industries, digital technology, renewable energy, and life sciences. She says such a mechanism can be used to mobilize funds to finance development of governments and the private sectors. Chairman of the CARICOM African Union Summit, the President of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, says the two sides should use their experiences of shortages of vaccines, personal protection equipment, and medical oxygen to boost their capacities to respond to diseases.
This, my brothers and sisters, is a wake-up call for all of us in the developing world. We must do what it is to build our own manufacturing capacity for vaccines and critical medical supplies. And in addition, we must strengthen research, surveillance, and monitoring capacity in order to mount effective responses to COVID-19 and other possible pandemics in the future.
He also says CARICOM and the African Union can collaborate in reaping the benefits of the blue economy, reducing the impact of climate change, and getting debt relief. The Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, suggested that the urgent setting up of a permanent Caribbean-Brazil-African Union Commission should be taken on board.
2 million people are depending upon us. Humanity is depending upon us. So, a transitional institutional arrangement, a permanent Africa CARICOM Commission to evolve into an Africa, Brazil, Caribbean Diaspora Commission. We can only speak here today about the Africa CARICOM Commission, a permanent body within this broad forum. This vision is something which I believe that all right-thinking people in Africa, the Caribbean, and indeed Latin America and the diaspora would support.
The 24 independent members of the Association of Caribbean States include the 14 CARICOM member states, plus Brazil, which have large numbers of descendants of enslaved Africans. At least 12 million Africans were taken to the Caribbean and Latin America to work on plantations. An employee of Trinidad and Tobago's Children's Authority has been ordered to stay away from a teenager, having been charged with one count of serious indecency. 37-year-old Kevin Duke appeared before Magistrate Joanne Connor at the Scarborough Magistrates Court on Monday, where he was granted $11,785 bail with a surety of $1,473 cash alternative. He was ordered to have no contact with the victim, who is 19 years old, and to keep 50 feet away from him at all times. The charge stemmed from an incident which allegedly occurred in October 2019. The victim told the police that he was having a conversation with Duke via social media when he allegedly showed him his private parts. The incident was reported in April 2020. The Tobago Division of the Police Service Child Protection Unit conducted investigations which led to the arrest and the charge of the accused. Duke will appear in court again on September 30. Antigua and Barbuda's Prime Minister Gaston Brown says it is becoming more difficult to pay salaries and wages. He says this is because of the negative impact of the prolonged coronavirus pandemic on the tourism-dependent economy of his country.
Almost invariably, in order to contain COVID, whenever there's an escalation in COVID cases, there's a need for us to let's say, increase curfews or to, for that matter, going into lockdowns. And every time curfew hours are increased or you're going into a lockdown, then it reduces the viability of the economy and creates fundamental problems. In fact, the strain to pay salaries and wages continues to increase month by month. It is becoming increasingly difficult to maintain the payment of salaries and wages. And we all know, too, that the payment of pensions by Social Security have been grossly affected because we have failed to return to normalcy in order to put people back to work.
The Antigua and Barbuda Prime Minister is painting a bleak picture if residents of that twin island nation do not heed the COVID measures and also become vaccinated.
The longer the COVID situation protracts, the longer people take to get vaccinated, then those challenges will persist. It means, therefore, that a lot of people will remain unemployed, and fundamentally more people will get ill, more people will die of COVID. So the responsible thing really to do is for each person to get vaccinated in the national interest. It goes beyond the personal interest, but for individuals to do so in the national interest in order to restore, economy and at the same time to protect livelihoods.
Antigua and Barbuda's Prime Minister Gaston Brown. And now we go to the BBC for the latest international news.
BBC News with Sue Montgomery. The Taliban have announced a caretaker government in Afghanistan, which has been told by the group's secretive spiritual leader to uphold Sharia law. They are recreating a ministry of vice and virtue, which last time deployed religious police to walk the streets, scrutinising people's behaviour. The new caretaker Prime Minister will be Mohammed Hassan Akhund, who is on a United Nations sanctions list. Our chief international correspondent, Lise Doucette, assesses the new administration.
The Taliban lived in the shadows for so long. The only time their names really appeared in print, for those who followed Afghanistan closely, was when one or another appeared on the US terrorism list or the UN sanctions list. And now they're being given titles like any government anywhere in the world: Prime Minister, Minister of Defence, Minister of the Interior. There's 33 mullahs, underlining that the most important priority is the establishment of an Islamic emirate. So they need those with high Islamic understanding and knowledge. Several of them are on the UN or the US's terrorism list, and they are the political and military heavyweights.
Medical workers in the western Afghan city of Herat say 3 people were shot dead when the Taliban opened fire at a protest. 7 others were injured. Earlier, the Taliban broke up a demonstration in Kabul by firing into the air. Many demonstrators avoided criticising the Taliban directly and aimed their anger at Pakistan, which they accuse of supporting the Islamist group.
Pakistan has directly attacked our country. We don't want Pakistan to announce the government here. Afghanistan is a free country. We women and men are not the same as those 20 years ago who were being whipped into submission.
The UN's nuclear watchdog says its monitoring activities in Iran have been seriously undermined. This follows Iran's decision earlier this year to stop some inspections by the International Atomic Energy Agency. Tehran reduced its cooperation with the agency in retaliation for continuing US economic sanctions. Mexico's Supreme Court has ruled that criminal penalties for terminating pregnancies are unconstitutional. The court ordered the state of Coahuila to remove sanctions for abortion from its criminal code. Here's Will Grant.
High-profile protests by feminist and women's rights campaigners have underlined the need for greater reproductive rights in Mexico. The decision is likely to anger more conservative politicians in Mexico and the Catholic Church. However, the Church's influence has been waning in recent years, and the government considers itself staunchly secular. In Latin America, abortion laws vary from fully legal in Cuba, Uruguay and Argentina to illegal in all circumstances, including rape and incest, such as in El Salvador.
BBC News. About 1,000 people have protested in the capital of El Salvador on the first day the cryptocurrency Bitcoin became legal tender, alongside the US dollar. The demonstrators said the volatility of Bitcoin made it inappropriate as a national currency, and shopkeepers, bus drivers and restaurant owners would struggle. Its introduction was marked by difficulties. The authorities had to take the digital wallet app temporarily offline due to technical glitches. Tens of thousands of people have taken to the streets across Brazil to show support for President Jair Bolsonaro, who has launched new attacks on Congress and the Supreme Court. Addressing his supporters in Brasilia, Mr. Bolsonaro said the head of the court should rein in other judges. He later travelled to Sao Paulo. A government official in Gambia has resigned after her party said it would merge with that of a former strongman, Yahya Jammeh, who is accused of overseeing human rights abuses. Fatou Dramane said the decision undermined the integrity of the government of President Adama Barrow, who defeated the former military officer in the 2016 election. A 19-year-old woman is suing a health authority in northern Spain for $3.5 million for being swapped at birth with another baby girl. Here's our Europe regional editor, Mike Sanders.
The mix-up happened in a hospital in Logroño. A lawyer says the two babies were born 5 hours apart. Both had low birth weight and were put near each other in incubators and then handed to the wrong mothers. Reports say the family that took the anonymous plaintiff home was dysfunctional. The mistake emerged only 4 years ago when the supposed father demanded a paternity test during a dispute about child support. The health authority says its current systems would make any such mistake impossible and blamed one-off human error.
BBC News.
And that's the news to the moment.
Hate to stand in lines? Don't worry. KFC has got you covered with their drive-thrus, which are open from 9:30 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. at Movietown, Blissingen Road, Mandela Avenue, Breedenhoop, Parika, and now the Amazonia Mall. That's right, you can drive through at 6 of their 9 locations. Remember their current opening hours, 9:30 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. Go on down and let your taste buds savor the spices today. KFC.
It's finger-licking good.
And now a recap of the highlights. Venezuela's government and an opposition coalition have formally agreed to unite around their country's long-standing claim to an oil-rich swath of neighboring Guyana. There has been a sharp increase in the number of COVID deaths within the past 24 hours, and none of them was vaccinated. The Regional Forward chairman is accusing the central government of attempting to impose a budget in the region, but the regional executive officer says official records prove otherwise. A man has allegedly chopped his father to death on the Essequibo island of Wakanam. Regionally, the Caribbean Community CARICOM today proposed several initiatives to deepen integration with African nations. And internationally, the Taliban have announced an interim government in Afghanistan, declaring the country an Islamic emirate. That's the news that came to you with the compliments of Kentucky Fried Chicken.
The news from Guyana, the region and the world. Compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom and powered by DemeraraWaves.com.